Hey, my name is Eric Taylor, Barricade Cyber. You're tuning into Brutally Honest Security Podcast. And before we get started with the show, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're checking this out on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or any of the podcast medias that you're listening to, do us a favor. If you enjoyed this, please give this thing 5 stars. Tell someone about us, and let's grow this channel. We're bringing cybersecurity in a blunt manner so that way people can understand it and get to the heart of the core issues. With that, let's get on with the podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. Thank you for tuning in. This is episode 3. Y'all thought I was going away. No, 2 episodes is definitely not enough. We're definitely heading here for the long haul. Just had a lot of travel and things that are going on. So I had to really, focus on some work and things of that nature. So we had to delay the podcast for a little bit. But here we are. A couple weeks later, welcome to episode 3. It's been a little bit of a slow news couple of weeks. There's not been really a whole lot going on. But we'll try to cover some of the best topics that we have here. So strap in, let us, and let's enjoy the ride. If there's any stories that you want to hear about, definitely let us know and put it down in the show, put it down in the comments down in YouTube, or send us a link message on LinkedIn, like, hey, what do you think about this particular topic? And we'll make sure we cover it. With that, let's get on with the thing. What kind of story is a news story if we don't talk about patching, ladies and gentlemen?
In its October 2025 Patch Tuesday batch, Microsoft fixed 172 major security flaws, including 3 0 days and at least 2 actively exploited vulnerabilities. Key issues included an elevation of privilege bug in the Agere modem driver, LTMDM64.sys, and a remote code execution flaw in WSUS. Notably, this update coincides with the official end of support for Windows 10. Install these updates immediately to reduce risk.
So everybody gets deer to headlight look when it comes time for this, right? Elevation of privilege, aka you're able to get to be a system administrator with little or no effort at all to you. That's definitely a big no-no. There's 80 of them. Remote code execution, aka RCEs, there's 31 of those. Some information disclosure, 28. Oh, speaking of information disclosure, I didn't put on this one because it just happened, but there's some stories that's circulating as of about an hour of recording this that apparently the Democratic website leaked a bunch of people who has top security clearance in the federal government. How awesome is that? Talk about information disclosure there. If it does come out to be true and we do get some more, I may do an update on that particular one, but definitely keep that in your watch list. Denial of service, spoofing, tampering. This is a little bit of a shameful plug, but if you didn't know and you're just learning about us, we do have a free tool out there called EPSSLookup.com or lookuptool.com, whichever one you prefer to do. And those who are watching on YouTube can definitely see the tool as it comes up. I prefer dark mode, so definitely click that thing up there on the top right-hand side. And what I typically do is I'm like, okay, this CVE right here, I want to get more information about this particular one. I know the story does mention it, but we can kind of come in here and plop that CVE in here, check the EPSS score on it, and we see, we have an EPS of 0.2%. It's not released to the CISA KEV yet. It does give a little bit of information, and we do have some additional references. Availability impact is pretty high. Confidential impact is pretty high in this particular scenario. So definitely go through this tool or use this tool in conjunction with your patch management to see, what is the possible impact on our identity. So let's take this one for the RCE that's impacting Windows Server Update, which is the 2025-59287. Just reading that out loud for those who are on the audio version. EPSS is 9.2. This has a 9.8 out of 10 criticality, and you have a 92 percentile of this being, pretty much pwning your server. So unless your server is public facing, you still have to, the threat actor still has to get in there. But this is a pretty big one, right? So definitely take a look at this stuff. See what is applicable to your potential, scenario. Denial of service 11 flaws that are impacting DirectX. I'm not sure who's really running DirectX without being a gaming, but okay. And then again, I live in a bubble, ladies and gentlemen. But a full breakdown on this one is really done. Pretty nice article put together by GB Hackers. Again, link is in the show notes down below once this thing is put out for those who are on YouTube watching us stream this thing live. So there's a lot of them in here. So definitely take a look at this, see what's applicable to you and your organization, and start patching right away as humanly possible.
The city of Mentor in Ohio confirmed it was hit by a cyber attack and took hosted servers offline to protect data. So far, there's no indication that private information was compromised. Most general service phone lines are back in operation, although some online services remain limited while full system recovery is underway.
Yeah, if you haven't been watching the news lately, especially over the past 2 or 3 months, threat actors are going after municipalities more and more. I don't care which side of the political fence you lean on, municipalities are being hit. There's so many, I think at least 16 or 17 municipalities that have or have not, or a mixture of bringing down 911 services has been in there just over the past 45 days at least. So, if you are a municipality or you are supporting a municipality, you definitely need to sit up and pay attention to these type of events. Unfortunately, we haven't seen any post-mortem debriefs on any of these cyber events to be like, was it ransomware? Was it just a denial of service? Was it, whatever the case may be, that actually impacted them? So we just don't know what exactly happened. We're kind of paying attention to a lot of the leak sites to see if they get mentioned there, but we haven't seen any. So either, the municipalities are paying for a potential ransomware decryption tool, or, this is a different situation where it could be a DDoS or whatever the case may be. So, your mileage may vary, but definitely, again, if you're a municipality, definitely pay attention to it. And if you're a business, something you got to take a look at strongly is how much is your business impacted by municipalities and other vendors, right? There's a major business thing to consider and reconsider if you haven't done it in a while, is looking, as much as I hate to say it, but your supply chain. How much is your business dependent on one particular vendor to supply you the metal for your Bob sprocket, so to speak, and being able to conduct business in a meaningful way in this type of scenario. So, business continuity, looking at what can impact your business if a organization downstream to you was hit. So again, pay attention, consider this. Hopefully everybody in Mentor, Ohio is doing well, no delay and stuff like that. So anyway, one of my enter sarcastic mark here, threat actor groups, Qilin.
Cybersecurity researchers warn that the Qilin ransomware group has launched a new hybrid attack that uses a Linux encryptor on Windows systems combined with a bring-your-own vulnerable driver exploit to disable protections and wipe backups. The campaign deploys legit remote management tools to move unseen, then targets Veeam backup infrastructure and other critical systems for maximum impact.
So if you don't know, Qilin ransomware has been around for a while. They are literally publicizing roughly 60 victims per month, right? In fact, I even got a story. Okay, so this article by InfoSecurity mentions 40. I could have sworn in a lot of my CTI feeds, we're seeing as much as 60. Qilin ransomware group publishes over 40 cases monthly. They are growing. They do have a growing impact, as this article states. Since emerging since mid 2020, Qilin, formerly known as Agenda ransomware group, which not many people knew about. They use the Phobos payload for a lot of their stuff, but they are not just primarily focused on the U.S. They definitely hit everybody. Australia, South America, a lot of Russian targets, things of that nature. And this one article actually touts the Cisco Talos article. So as you can see on the screen, uncovering attack. This one actually this report goes into our IOCs, indicators of compromise on there. You can see in here, the original article was talking about 40, and I was mentioning, I've been seeing at least 60 according to my CTI feeds, and this article is actually confirming what I was stating a moment ago. Since May of this year, it's been over 40. So we're over 60 actually on a lot of these ones. So it's a definitely good article to go through. Again, link in the show notes. Manufacturing and professional services, aka your IT, your MSP vendors, are the biggest culprit of the Qilin ransomware group. There's a massive drop off according to the Cisco Talos. My CTI feed, I'm not really sure if it's that big of a drop off. I'll have to definitely do some more information and double checking on this one between the manufacturing and the technical services down to the world wholesale trade, aka transportation and things of that nature, like your trucking and things. They actually got transportation and warehousing down separately. So it's very interesting. I'm almost wanting to bet that the technical services, your IT, MSP, are much more greatly impacted than a lot of the manufacturing, at least as of recently. So take a look at this one. They do go through a lot of the IOCs, and I'm a big, massive proponent, ladies and gentlemen. Let me zoom in on this one. When you are looking at securing your individual environment, much like the CVEs in the first story, you really got to go back and take a look, like what are threat actors doing to get into it. Qilin is, or how I pronounce it, Qilin, is definitely one that you can mimic inside of your environment. If you can shut down the doors of access in your environment and monitor the dark web for your information being disclosed out there, you're able to stop 99% of the other threat actor groups that are out there, except for 0 days, like we've seen with Sonic Wall and Acura going after them. I mean, there's some things you just can't help to some degree, but definitely, going through the IOCs and seeing what you can lock down your environment. You're able to stop a lot of the other ones because you know what? They're all doing a lot of the same TTPs, right? So, it's interesting to see that the Qilin ransomware payload is being written in Linux and then being deployed on Windows operating systems. It's a little bit of a different one, but having a good EDR in place, aka CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, some of those bigger players in the field, you'll be able to easily detect a lot of those stuff. But again, your EDR is almost like a last line of defense, in my personal opinion. While it's great and being able to minimize your blast radius, but definitely having more robust security in place to make sure that is your last line of defense, and not having your EDR as your first line of defense is highly, highly recommended. All right, with that, let's get on this smishing.
Researchers at Palo Alto Networks' Unit 42 have linked over 194,000 malicious domains to the smishing triad, a China-linked phishing operation that uses SMS and fake delivery and toll notices to trick victims into giving up credentials and installing malware. The infrastructure is highly automated, registers domains by the thousands, and uses U.S. cloud services for hosting.
Yeah, this is a major problem. All right, so smishing is a massive problem, and why is it getting more and more used? Because it freaking works. It just fucking works. It does, unfortunately. And threat act, even to this day, there are people who fall for the IRS scams of, you've got to give us $500 in Apple gift cards and things of that nature, right? Why do they do it? Because it still works. This is what you can do for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, if you will. Let's start teaching people how to identify smishing. Seriously, it doesn't have to be a paid course. And literally go out and talk to old people, talk to the kids, show them what smishing looks like. Especially when you get those, I even got some of these text messages in this morning from an unknown number saying, I'm telling you, you're doing better than you think. I'm telling you what's going to happen. When you respond to those messages, it's an automated thing that happens. They're going to respond. They're going to, quote unquote, nurture you and get you fattened up and submit into it. So let me know in the comments if you would like me to go down the rabbit hole of setting up a couple of burner phones and go through mock smishing discoveries. Like, we submit the phone numbers to a lot of these people and we just wait for them to come in. And then we just start talking to them and helping identify these things. That may be some good educational based information. If we can prevent the old people from falling into it and we can start teaching the younger generation, maybe in 5 or 10 years, this is not a fucking problem anymore. How about that? But let's take it a little bit more seriously, because people are falling for it, unfortunately. And it absolutely drives me nuts because, legitimate common sense should dictate. The IRS is never, like things like the IRS is never going to call you and say, hey, we need you to give us Apple gift cards. Your bank is not calling you to tell you to wire information or give a payment in Bitcoin. So going to your local Bitcoin ATM, right? It's trash. Like, my wife even got one a couple weeks ago saying that there was a insert bank name here for a credit card authorization. And we've been getting a lot of weird transactions on our personal and corporate credit cards. I'm sure the card has been leaked somewhere. So my wife, texted me and said everything, and I pulled up the account, and I'm not seeing the transaction in question. So I'm like, just tell them to call me. So when the call came in, it sounded very professional. It was an American accent. It sounded legitimate. And my bank does a push notification on their app to authenticate that you're actually talking to a bank representative. So when we were going through that, I was like, yeah, just send me the push notification. Oh, we don't need to do that. We just need you to verify this. I'm like, no, just send me the as soon as he said that, that kind of confirmed to me, like, yep, this is a scammer. My radar was already up, but we need to know the policies that our vendors are using and trying to protect them as much as possible. So let's do that. Let's do some more educational based training. Can we do that? Let me know if you need, honestly, if you want help on it, let me know. I'm willing to dedicate a little bit of my time, and we'll put together some stuff. And we'll do some educational based, because I think it's worth it for the older and the upcoming generation that are, not saying it rudely, but clueless, and those who are just engulfed into technology and AI is running rampant. And maybe we should do how to detect, or real based scenarios, how to determine if the images are AI or not. That's some pretty good educational stuff. What do y'all think? Anyway, let me get off my soapbox and get back to the news. How about that?
A more than year-long hack of F5 has sent cyber defenders into high alert, as stolen source code and vulnerability data from the company could enable sweeping supply chain attacks. F5's gear is used by over 80% of the Fortune 500 and US federal networks, and the breach has been compared to the SolarWinds hack in scale and risk. US agencies issued an emergency directive for organizations to hunt for signs of compromise.
Yeah, this one, F5 has a lot of products. So if you don't know, they do have a lot of network solutions, load balancers, edge switching, a lot of cloud information, a lot of security products, things of that nature. And their website has definitely changed a little bit where you could actually, load balancing, the CDN, enterprise DNS, API gateways, unified management automation with their big IP. They have a lot of infrastructure. So they deliver solutions for the enterprise that are primarily web-based or content-based delivery. Think of now you're building out an app and you need, let's say TikTok, because that one's been in the in the news a lot lately. Let's just say you're building out a TikTok alternative and you need to make it redundant. You need to be able to make it, geolocated, all that. You could do Amazon, you could do Azure, or you can do something like F5 that uses some of their own plus a versions of or a mixture of both of those type of cloud infrastructures, and be able to make sure that your app is able to be delivered to the user base, and that's what they do. So F5 does not provide infrastructure and stuff like that typically to small businesses, especially micro businesses under 50 users, because it takes a lot of capital to get into F5's ecosystem. So yeah, this is definitely a big one. If F5 has had so many problems over the past 4 or 5 years that businesses really should honestly start looking at considering a different solution, right? Like, when are businesses honestly going to start holding vendors responsible? Like, you're just reintroducing old legacy code that is vulnerable, and now we're being pwned, and we're going to have more and more problems. Why is this still an issue? It's definitely a problem, ladies and gentlemen.
Even though a cryptographically relevant quantum computer may be a decade or two off, adversaries could already be harvesting encrypted data. The window to act, data lifetime plus migration time, is closing fast.
This is really a more that the more you know type of story. And I really wanted to bring this one up, right? I know everybody's like, oh yes, crypto or quantum computers this, quantum computers that. But if you've been following AI for a while, you've been noticing a lot of trend where the videos are getting better. They're more concrete. They're more fluid. There's a lot less errors in a lot of it. But even though it does dork out a good bit, like even ChatGPT and Grok was going through and just having what seemed like seizure moments today through some of the testing that we were doing for some projects. This is a real world concern, right? Being able to look at the future, the one thing that businesses always have to be looking at is what are the writings on the wall? What is the industry's? What is the industry telling us? Where is the market shifting? And being able to get your data in a more secure fashion that's going to take quantum computing longer to potentially breach is going to be massively important. What does that look like? I personally don't know. It's going to be, but this is the questions that we have to start asking ourselves, because, just like CMMC, everybody was complaining about that damn train wreck of a thing. And now it's actually becoming a reality and people are still freaking out. Well, guess what? You've had 3 or 4 years to effing prepare for this and you're still freaking out. Don't let this be something else that you put on the back burner, right? Take a look at this stuff. Take a look at quantum computing. Take a look at your data. Like, yes, right now it's not feasible, but what do we start looking at to make it harder for quantum computing to decode our data? I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. And I'm sure there's discussions out there, but we need to start having those conversations, right? And we're a forensics firm. We are ingesting metadata for clients and stuff like that when we're doing forensics. And we're ingesting logs, and we don't ever get like the actual data off of them, but we have potential access to it. So how do we make sure that the data that we do get is in a more secure fashion? We're even asking that question ourselves. We don't know what that answer is yet, but we're at least having that conversation. So please start having that conversation, ladies and gentlemen. Start figuring out what does this look like, especially if you're in a financial firm, your financial institution, definitely the government agencies and, things of that nature. So, all right. Who wants some muddy water and not in a mud bogging country boy way?
Muddy Water is running a large-scale espionage campaign against more than 100 government-related organizations across the Middle East and Africa. The group used a compromised mailbox accessed via NordVPN to send phishing emails prompting macro activation. Victims receive attachments that deploy the fake update loader and then the Phoenix version 4 backdoor, enabling remote monitoring, credential theft, and persistence.
There's another one, just like I was talking about with the Qilin ransomware group. Definitely go through this one. I've seen reports of Muddy Water using the Phoenix backdoor against U.S. Infrastructure, but I haven't seen anything confirmed yet. So that's why I haven't linked it into the show notes or brought it up onto stream. But there's a lot of speculation and accusations that this is being deployed currently against the U.S. And the way that this is being pushed out, it's very clever, as much as I hate to say it. It really, really is very, very clever. You're compromising a Microsoft 365 tenant or, Google Workspace or insert email provider here, already known email server. So you're getting a hold of a trusted source and sending out what looks like to be a legitimate email from a compromised host or compromised box to update or to do X, Y, and Z that they're looking to have done. So, the trust that is already perceived from this domain and potentially this particular user is already pretty high. The communication needs to be had, but this is definitely going against government for the most part, because that's what they want. This is everything I've been seeing is not about, the public sector. It's about the private or the public. Not about the private sector. It's about the public sector, aka the government, and being able to infiltrate that. Could this be going on in the U.S. more widespread? Absolutely, because of the fact that the government's is currently shut down, except for essentials. So, this could very well be going on in the U.S. and we just don't know it yet. But, having conversations with everybody about this is what our SOP is, standard operating procedure for X, Y, and Z. You shouldn't be, responding to these type of things, right? If you haven't listened to the Fortify 365, we just re-recorded 3.5, and we actually talk about how to start putting in email filters around certain domains. So, as you're seeing some of these IOCs of domains that have been potentially compromised, you can be able to add that entire domain to being, either completely blocked or append a message to it. So it's kind of a timely thing. So I hope once that gets uploaded, maybe we'll be able to post that one as a correlation here. But yeah, needing to keep your IO or your SOPs in line, make sure people are doing what they're supposed to do. People of, Simply Cyber Team SC will know that, you got to patch it, or you have to scream out to Carl. Sorry, I was just thinking about patching for a second there. But, trying to make sure Carl's not doing it or doing something crazy and things of that nature, right? So, all right. As I mentioned before, some more ChatGPT. Here's where we go.
Researchers at Neural Trust discovered a flaw in the ChatGPT Atlas browser, where attackers can disguise malicious instructions inside URLs. By tricking the Omnibox into treating the input as an AI command instead of a link, the browser may execute hidden actions, such as navigating to attack sites or leaking data, without the user realizing.
This is definitely something to mention, because they did mention the Atlas browser, which is kind of a third-party browser. I don't know too many people that are actually using it, but if it's being done there, it won't. I suspected it would not be long before this type of vulnerability is being pivoted over to other browsers, aka your Chrome, your Firefox, Edge, things of that nature. And the workflow is pretty easy. The user logged into ChatGPT, holds authentication cookie. They are tricked into accessing a compromised website, and this dumps into what it's doing. So they're essentially pulling your session tokens potentially through the malicious website, and then they're using the prompt to do what they need to do in ChatGPT. When I did look through this particular story, it didn't look like it was being used to compromise the individual user itself, but more of just the AI account itself. So, if you're using AI, especially ChatGPT, you may just want to make sure that your browser updated. Again, if you're using Atlas browser, definitely update it right now, or potentially get rid of it. That may be a good idea. But just go through that. Like I hinted to earlier at the beginning, it's been kind of slow on the news for the most part. We're seeing some spiciness on the news this week so far, being only at Monday. So I suspect next week we'll have some more spicy and more in-depth conversations and things of that nature. But definitely stick around. Please like, share, subscribe, tell everybody about it. With that, y'all stay secure, my friends, and we'll see y'all next week. Take care.